Good morning, everybody. Danny back from Deepsouth Homestead on porch time today. Guys, I'm over here in the cabin. I don't have a fire built this morning. It's 46 degrees in the cabin this morning. We haven't been to the cabin in a couple of weeks now, and it's been closed up, and all the cold temperatures we've been having down in the low 30s and high 20s and stuff like that has got the cabin kind of cold on the inside. And I'm not going to be here today doing anything, so I'm not going to build a fire and have to sit here for hours waiting on it to die out. But I wanted to come over here because outside the wind is howling. It's just it's nasty. It's miserable outside. So I figured I would come inside the cabin and sit down, even though it's in the 40s in here, with the wind blowing outside. And it, as cold as it is, it's a lot warmer in here than it is out there. And, you know, a lot of people, when we put the video up about working on the barn loft and stuff like that, they're like, man, don't you use a nailer and all that kind of stuff? Well, the truth of the matter is, we're way back in the back side of the property back in here, and there's no electricity over here. Everything in the back of our property back in here is off grid. We did not want a power line run back in here. We wanted to leave this as natural as possible. The only electricity we have over here is if I crank the generator up out here, which can run the cabin, or the solar that I have here in the cabin. I have nothing in the barn. Now there's solar panels in the barn that runs fans and stuff like that in the barn to, you know, to keep things, lights and things like that, but there's no electricity down there to use anything like compressors or anything like that, drill motors or stuff. Everything we do over here is done with cordless tools. So, guys, we're excited. I mean, we finally got most all of our onions planted. We don't know how they're going to do. We raised them from seed. They're very tiny. Now, we did have a friend, Mr. Barrett, had some extra onions from Dixondale left over. I think there was 60-something of them. I set them out, and then I set out as many of ours as I could that looked like they were big enough to transplant, which is, I'm questionable about some of them, but we're going to do it just to see. Because like we said in the video where we were planting onions here a week or two ago, guys, ordering is not going to be sustainable. If you're going to be sustainable, you're going to have to do it yourself. And that's where we're at. Now we've got all of our greens planted, all of our cabbages, broccolis. I mean, we have all this stuff up, doing beautiful, and we're probably going to do a greenhouse video here before long and show you the progress of everything in the high tunnels that's going on, and we're going to show you what we have growing outside and show you how it's doing. And we're going to compare inside versus outside, weather, you know, how it's affecting everything. And let's just see. I mean, my ryegrass is finally, and my red crimson clover is finally growing a little bit. We're excited about that because finally, maybe here in the near future, we're going to be able to get the cows in there to have them some green to eat because they're just getting tired of eating nothing but hay. And I know, you know, that's what they do up north most of the time, but in the south down here, I like to see my cows have something green to eat along with it. And of course, now we keep the minerals and the proteins and stuff like that up to them. But they all have calves on them, and it's kind of tough on them right now. So I guess with all that, we don't really have a lot other going on. We did get our cane syrup made. We cooked 2 batches of it. We cooked one with David the Good was here, and we cooked another batch the next day. And just me and Wanda. And I pushed that batch to crystallize it just to see how it would turn into sugar and how long it would take it to turn into sugar. You know, just for the future references. I mean, we think we got 18 jars of syrup that's already got like a 1/4 inch of sugar in the bottom of it because I pushed it to the point without scorching it, but I pushed it just to see how far I could and tried to crystallize it some while I did. And for future purposes of having sugar in case we needed to have some sugar. And we'll carry you along on that journey and tell you a little bit about it as we go along. But today, guys, I want to talk about returning back to the old civilization, the early 15, 16, 1400s, maybe 1200s. Because I see that coming. Lots of people are like, we're going back to the 1800s. I believe we're going to go back further than that. I'm going to be honest with you. There's too many major factors coming into play right now. Everybody is everybody's looking into a direction. They're looking in every direction but the right direction, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I will say there are some countries across the water over there, Germany, and Germany, I think, was the last one that I heard anything about, was going online telling their people to stock up on food and water. And, when you got Germany doing that, Switzerland's been doing it for quite some time, telling their people to get ready. A lot of your European countries will pay attention to this just simply because, they're in that same region. But the sad part about it is you're not really hearing much over here in our country, because in our country, the populace wants to believe that it's not going to happen here. We're America. I mean, nothing's going to happen to us, right? We got grocery stores, we got all this stuff being trucked here and there. We can grow anything, we can do this, it goes on and on and on. And I got news for you. It's not going to stay that way. Those of you who watched the live stream the other night, this past week, I gave y'all a list of states to pay attention to. We've got issues that are beginning to happen that, and see, I got to be careful because a lot of YouTube channels that we know have been timed out. They've been pulled back for a while and stuff like that. So I got to be really careful because anytime you mention anything to do with the climate around us, they're really, they're not wanting much to be said until they're ready for people to know what's fixing to happen. And they are going to tell you. As a matter of fact, here in the very near future, there's going to be a lot of artifacts that's going to be revealed that a lot of people are just going to question. They're going to say, I don't believe this, because these artifacts come from several hundred feet underground. And when you look at it, please, I'm telling y'all, I'm trying to be honest with you, keep an open mind, okay? Forget everything that you've ever been taught and keep an open mind. Because I'm going to just be frank with you, the stuff that you've been taught your whole life is a lie. Most all of it is a lie. Historically speaking, it's a lie. Biblically speaking, much of it's a lie. The old serpent has been really, really good at manipulating things for generations to gradually ease things in as to being the truth when they really weren't the truth. Because you see, Solomon in his word, and it's several places in Solomon, there's tidbits and hints, but one is that there's nothing new under the sun. Now, I want you to stop and think about that one passage. There's nothing new under the sun. All right. You've got a laptop. You're watching me on an electronic device. I mean, a cell phone, a laptop, or a PC. I mean, you're watching me on something, a TV, Roku. I mean, you're watching me on something. Do you know that's been before? If the Bible is accurate, which I believe it is, or let's just say the scriptures, because they've uncovered a whole bunch of new Sumerian texts and tablets and stuff, hundreds and hundreds of them. They've found new ones, and it's revealing some things that we haven't been told. So if there's nothing new under the sun, that electric automobile that they've got out now, the new ones, your car, your trucks, submarines, boats, all this stuff, if the scriptures are accurate, that's not new. It's been before. And now through satellite technology that can see deep into the earth, they've located many, many objects and have done archaeological digs now that are going to reveal that this was the case. You see, during Noah's time, everybody thinks that Noah, this is, I guess, the old, the old belief. Noah was out there with a hatchet and a crosscut saw and all this kind of stuff. He was cutting beams for this ark that he was building. It was taking him hundreds of years to build this ark, and because he's having to hew it all out by hand and all that kind of stuff. But guys, I'm going to tell you, that's not accurate. There was a lot of super intelligence and technology during Noah's day. The Watchers brought much of this technology down to Noah and to the people that was on the earth at this time. And that's what kind of irritated. If you kind of go back and read the book of Enoch and stuff, that's what irritated the Lord. The Watchers gave man knowledge of things he had no business. They had no business giving man knowledge of at that particular point in history. And well, God didn't have that planned, and that's what infuriated him so much. And then the hybridization of his creation irritated him. And I think about the point that we're at today, because the scripture says, in the days of the coming of the Son of Man, to be as it was in the days of Noah and in the days of Lot. So if hybridization was or cloning and all this kind of stuff was really big during Noah's day, and God's looking at it today, because we're doing a lot of hybrids, everything's hybrids. Look at our animals. We hardly have anything left on the face of the earth that hasn't been crossed in some way or shape or form. And God's creation has been just toyed with to the point that it's not pure anymore. And even down to our automobiles now. Now cars, we call them hybrids because they can run off of gas, electricity. Everything's a hybrid. Believe it or not, we have hybrid people. I know that may sound crazy to a lot of you who just can't see beyond the nose on the front of your face, but we have that technology. They exist, and in the future you're going to meet them. You're going to see them. And when I say we're going back to predated times in these countries, historically speaking, any time in history that man has evolved to a particular point, he destroys himself. Literally, greed and everything comes into existence, and control and all these factors come into existence to a point where man destroys his own self, and he destroys the ecology of the earth. He destroys everything. Literally. And we're there now. Because everything you see now is pointing toward, we got to hybridize this, we got to hybridize that. We've got to get away from eating meat. We've got to start eating a more plant-based thing. You know, we need more insect proteins and quit eating because it's just get rid of all the beef and the animals because it's destroying the world's atmosphere and all this kind of stuff. And guys, that's just not true. It's just not true. The point we're at is not a good point now in history. We're fixing to begin to see the earth, as it mentions in the scriptures, travailing as a woman in labor. Now, when you stop and think about a woman in labor, she has a child inside her. And she's swelled up really large, her belly is, because there's something in there. And until what's in there comes out, she doesn't go back down to her normal size. That's what's happening to the earth. Right now, the earth is receiving excess amounts of radiation from outer space, and it's being pulled in through the end poles, and it's inside the internal part of the earth is beginning to swell. And much like a hot water heater, I explained this in one of the other videos, much like a hot water heater, if you don't have a pop-off valve on it and the internal parts of it get too hot, it would explode. Well, now the earth is not going to explode. We know that based on scriptures. But what is going to happen is that at some point, it's going to relieve the pressure that's in it. Now, as it begins to travail, the surface of the earth is beginning to crack. We have new fault zones all over the earth now. And these new fault zones, if something doesn't happen soon, you're going to start seeing earthquakes in diverse places, much like what it says in the scriptures in Matthew. I have seen the maps of these new fault zones, and everybody's worried about the San Andreas, everybody's worried about the New Madrid, and all these other fault zones in the Ring of Fire in the Pacific, and stuff to this nature. And the reason I tell you is that no matter how much we prepare, we're not prepared for what's coming. Is the new fault zones, when they begin to happen and the earth begins to break, I don't care how much you've prepared, most aren't prepared for that. And then when the water levels rise as rapidly as they're going to rise, most people aren't prepared for that. In speaking with some different people in the past weeks, they noticed their earthquake insurance went up. There's a reason for that. They've been told it's coming. Flood insurances are going up. The insurance companies have been told it's coming. Insurance companies right now are already going broke, paying for things. I can't go into detail about this, but they're paying for things that we haven't been told about, that's happening everywhere. And if we were told, we wouldn't believe. That's why I told you on the last Porch Time, when lots of this stuff comes to fruition, and it's not going to be long off, when it starts coming to fruition, people's hearts are going to fail them for fear. That is scripture. That's not me. This is not fear tactic today. This is just simply telling you what the scriptures have already said. I'm not making this up. This is in the Bible. It's there. The Bible tells us plainly all this stuff is going to happen. We just in our minds want to believe that some way off in the future sometime some other civilization is going to have to deal with it. Well, reality check, it looks like we're going to be that civilization. Do yourself a favor. There is an agenda underway right now to deplete people of their finances. Do yourself a favor. Do not go out and spend a ton of money on Christmas. And spend your money on Christmas and traveling and all this kind of stuff, sitting back hoping that your income tax check this coming year is going to give you that money back to pay off a debt that you went and borrowed money or put on credit cards or whatever. Well, if you put on credit cards, you borrowed it. I mean, and you're expecting your income tax money to come back in and to pay that debt off. Don't do that. Don't go out and spend your hard-earned money this year going in debt for gifts. I don't care if it's for Hanukkah, if it's for Christmas, I don't care what it's for. This is the year, don't do it. They're getting ready to do a huge reset on not just America, but the world. Don't be one of those that's found sitting there in a financial crisis where you can't do anything except comply. Because that's what the system is being set up to do, is to put people into a position where all they can do is just comply. Get you food, water. I have a filtration system here. It's an Alexa Pure. And yes, it's probably not 100% the best that there is in the world. But I would whole lot rather drink the water coming out of this Alexa Pure than I had out of a pond or a creek or an unsafe water source. At least I've drank out of this now for 2 or 3 years and I'm still okay. So I'm not worried about it. But get you some sort of purification system for your water. You're going to need it. Don't fall prey to all this solar stuff in the future. Because there's coming a point, and I don't know how to say this and it not sound cruel, but it's not going to do you any good. Now you may get some benefit out of it, because I have some solar panels here, but I'm not banking on it. What I'm banking on is the skills from the 16th and 17th and 18th century where you don't have anything to fall back on for electricity. That's why over the years I have actively been gathering specific tools. Because, guys, I did a video on Patreon way back, probably a year or two ago, telling you about a dream I had in the 1980s. And I tell you, certain states like California, Las Vegas, Florida, New York, I tell you all these states that God showed me that was going to just be destroyed. And I don't know when any of that will actually happen. But then I told about a dream on another one of our videos where my father was taking me down the road. My father's been passed away now for a while. But he was taking me down the road and asking me, what did I see? And the sides of the roads were all growed over. There were no highway crews keeping everything cut and manicured. It was all growed up. And inside these, I kept saying, Dad, all I see is everything growed up. And he kept telling me, look, son, look deeper. And as I looked, I began to see soldiers in all those, in all that grown up stuff. And then he took me into the cities and he showed me the cities, and there were tanks in the cities, and there were military vehicles everywhere in the cities. And he said, this is your new America. And then he was just gone. You know, I mean, I explain all this stuff in dreams, and now I can't promise you 100% what it all means, but I believe it's a warning as to what we're about to face. This thing of preparing and thinking we're preparing for a scale of us being something similar to what we are now. And that, I'm afraid that's just not what it's going to be like. You know, everybody says, well, one weapon could send us back into the 1800s. I'm afraid it's going to be further back than that, to be honest with you. I'm afraid we're going to go back maybe to 12 to 1500, somewhere in that area. But then again, it's questionable to me, because we know that the beast system has to come into existence. And we know that it's artificially done through intelligence. And that there is some parts of the earth that's going to have the capability to use technology. But we don't know what state the earth is going to be in at that time. It's going to be so bad that in Revelation it tells us that a day's wages, it'll take a day's wages to buy enough bread to feed one person. That is what's called super hyperinflation and a lack of food. What drives food that high is a lack of it. And right now, everything I see is pushing us towards a lack of food. I see us plummeting in that direction very rapidly. So guys, don't go wasting your money on tons of gifts this year. If you're going to buy, this is what Wanda and I have decided to do. We've decided to go over to we have a place that we have a link over on My Patriot Supply. And if y'all are interested, you can use that link, but we use it. We're going over there and we purchase buckets of food to give as gifts during this holiday season for our families. That is what we have decided to do. Rather than waste money on a gift, whether you're giving a gift for Hanukkah or whether you're giving a gift for the Christmas season or whatever it is, or whatever you celebrate or however you do it, think about giving a gift that sustains life. If they're still available, I don't even know if they're still available or not, but the Alexa Purers, they're over there. And someone did contact me and tell me that they're out of the picture filtration systems. They did have them in because they contacted us and told us they did, but they must have sold out instantly. But guys, if you're going to give a gift this year, make it a gift of sustainability. Give them one of those plastic buckets of food for a gift. And I promise you, in the future, at some point, they will thank you. Rather than buying some silly toy or gadget or picture or whatever to hang on the wall or whatever, spend what money you have wisely if you're going to be one of those who spends money. Because there is the agenda to bankrupt everybody. Your big box stores already realize there's going to be a problem. Lots of them are shutting down tons of their facilities. Amazon, Walmart, Kohl's. I mean, I could go down, I could just keep going down the list. A lot of your big food supply chain stores are being shut down. Just simply because they just can't keep them stocked. Walmart's earnings have been fluctuating a lot here lately, and it's got them worried. So they're shutting down tons of their stores. And guys, anytime a civilization reaches the point that ours is at this time, greed, like I said before, greed sets in. And when greed sets in, you have certain people who just want to rule the world. And as a result, they try to, through wickedness, that's the reason the Bible tells us, you don't deal against flesh and blood. Guys, we're not dealing. If I could ever get anything across to anybody, it would be that we're not dealing with flesh and blood. The people that are the things, let me use the word things, because the ones that's in control are hybrids. The things that are running the earth right now are not flesh and blood completely. And that may blow your mind, but there's things out there. They don't care about you. They don't care about whether you live or die. They don't care about whether I live or die. But what I want to do is tell you, I want to give you some encouragement here, because this all sounds horrible, when it's really not, because the Bible has told us in Matthew all this is going to happen. And then it says in the end is not yet. I mean, it's still going to keep on going. We've got to endure these things, and just, guys, put your faith in the Lord. Build your faith, because the only thing, like I've told you, and I know I keep harping on this on video after video after video, but there's going to come that day you're going to go, oh my word, he was so right. Build your faith. Guys, there's when that system is completely put into operational order, and I know a lot of you is going to sit here and go, but I'm not going to be here, I'm going to be raptured out. Well, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I'm not going to argue with you, okay? But I'm going to continue to prepare. And I just want as many people to be as real. Well, let me put it this way. Okay, let me put it another way, because I'm sitting here, I got 1,000 things running through my mind. My mind, unlike a lot of other people's, works like a computer. What do you have to lose? If you prepare and you stock up a bunch of stuff, and your calling out happens, your harpazo happens, have you done a bad thing? And the answer is no, because anyone, let's just use a phrase that was left behind, finds it, they can survive. So you've done a service to humanity. But if it doesn't happen the way that you think it will, and you're sitting here and you're going like, wow, what happened? It didn't happen the way I thought it was going to happen, but at least I've got food, and I've got a way to purify some water. I have some things stocked up for my family. What do you have to lose by preparing? You have absolutely nothing to lose. So I would encourage you, just like Noah when he was building the ark and people were making fun of him and laughing at him, it never rained. Noah, you're building an ark out here on dry ground. What the world are you doing? Have you lost your ever-living Marbles, I mean, have you gone crazy? And Noah kept saying, there's coming a day. There's coming a day. It's going to rain. And guys, until that day when the rain started falling and people began to beat on the door of that ark. Noah! Noah! No! Let us in, Noah! We're drowning! I could hear Noah on the inside of the ark saying, I didn't close the door and I didn't seal it, and I can't open it. Because see, God fixed it where Noah couldn't open that door because Noah's compassion toward the people, a lot of them were probably family members. Noah's compassion, he would have opened the door to try to let some of them in. And see, God is a just God. We're in a time, me and a friend, Mr. Barrett, was talking about this past week. We're in a time of the separating of the wheat and the tares. And all the tares aren't going to be lost people. A lot of them are going to be people who claim to be Christians. Because you see, there's that verse there in Matthew where he says, where they say, Lord, have we not done many works in your name, many mighty works in your name? And he said, depart from me. I never knew you. So a lot of people who, he's not talking to the lost people there. He's talking to Christians. People who profess to be Christians. Who have went out of their way to say that they've done mighty works for Christ. And he's going to say, depart from me because I don't know who you are. So like I used to tell people, you better do a checkup from the neck up and make sure you're right. You don't want to be one of those beating on the door of the ark. You don't want to be one of those that's sitting back saying, Lord, but didn't we do things in your name? And hear him say, I don't know who you are. Depart from me and be cast away. Guys, this is serious. We're going into a serious time. Time for playing's over. Time for bickering and fussing and fighting about what might happen or what might not happen. That's over. It is happening. The what ifs is over. Wake up. Look up. Your redemption is close to coming to fruition. Now, God's time is not our time. We have to understand that. But I can assure you of one thing. There's too many prophetic events happening for it not to be close. Just like when the flood happened. There was a solar system that came into our solar system at that time. Supercomputers have been able to go backwards throughout the galaxies and track these solar systems, and they've brought them to date. And at the dates when these things happened, they were in our existence at that time. And guys, they're knocking on our door again. We're just not being told that they're there. When they come through, just like in the past, where there's been everything that we have today has been before and got wiped out and had to start all over again from scratch. We're looking at facing that same event again. No one gets to choose in history what time they're born or what period in history they're in. Only the Almighty gets to choose that. We want to believe that these kind of events, these supernova events, or somewhere way in the future. Well, it appears scientifically and historically that they're not that far in the future. And we've lived a luxurious lifestyle over here, just like it says in the scriptures, when it talks about the end times, and it talks about how people have lived lavishly. The church of Laodicea, she has no need for anything. She's lukewarm. She's had the good life. What does Christ say? I'll spew you out of my mouth, because you make him sick at his stomach. He said, I would that you were hot or that you were cold. There would be hope for you if you were hot or if you were cold. But because you're not either, you're trying to straddle the fence, and you're trying to enjoy the best of both worlds, which is God and sin, which you cannot have both of them. He said, I'll spew you out of my mouth. And guys, we're in the Laodicean church age. Be prepared. Take care of yourself financially. Take care of yourself physically. Take care of yourself mentally. Take care of yourself spiritually. And guys, these videos ain't going to always be up. You're not going to always be able to come back to these videos. They're going to go away at some point. And when they do, my prayer is that we'll be ready to meet our Lord and Savior. That is my desire, is to be like the Apostle Paul said, to hear him say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Thank you guys from Deepsouth, Homestead.